Good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody here. Welcome to the November 21st, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Great to have you guys with us tonight. And Ms. Washington, could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Mr. Barhu,
Present.
Mr. McLean,
Here.
Mr. Newman, Mr. Robinson, present. Mr. Servance, Mr. Weatherholtz,
Here.
and Ms. Washington.
Okay. 5 for 7. All right, very good. We can do some business then. So let's continue along to item number 3, the approve the minutes of the October 24th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a
Make a motion that we approve. Minutes.
Second.
thank you? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Folks, any citizens that would like to address the board concerning items on the agenda, we ask you to fill out the green comment form. When you come to the lectern, please state your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes or less if you can make your point in less than 3 minutes if you come up to speak. So with that, let's move right into item 4A.
Item
Madam
4,
Secretary.
item 4A. It's going to be all right.
That's all right. We'll
Reserve at Strickland, small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. Mr. Merrell. Sorry about that.
Okay. Are we good?
I skipped you. Merrill is doing the presentation.
No, Doug's right here. We got to give him his shot to do his thing. So, Doug.
This also has a rezoning with this. We'd like to do both in conjunction. If
Can we
it's,
do 4A and B? Let's do that, please.
thank you. Why is this not working? There we go. This is a request by Rob Merrell from Cobb Cole for approval of a small-scale comp plan amendment changing the future land use map designation from office transition to mixed use, and also a new neighborhood K policy to allow for retail uses. This applicant is also applying for a rezoning to a planned development, PDG, and is located at 1857 Strickland Range, the southeast corner of Strickland and Clydemore's. Currently, it's vacant property. The proposed amendment is to change the 2.31 acres from office transition to mixed use to allow for retail uses in that property. Also, the proposed amendment to neighborhood K, creating issue P, policy 1, limiting the trips to 83 p.m. peak hour trips. The potable water, wastewater, and proposed trips will theoretically be a net zero change from the current land use. This is showing the current land use and proposed. And staff finds that small-scale amendment is consistent with the comp plan. It doesn't represent urban sprawl. And the city has available capacity to serve the demand on available water and sewer. Based on analysis, the proposed future land use map amendment from office transition to mixed use and neighborhood K amendment limiting the trip generation appears to meet the criteria for proposed amendment. Majority vote of planning board members present voting is required to recommend approval to the City Commission. This item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by City Commission January 8th, 2025. Second reading, public hearing at January 22nd, 2025. And that concludes my portion of the presentation.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions for staff at item 4A? Seeing none, thank you, Doug. We'll,
I'll wait for the both of the other
okay,
piece of it.
okay, very good. We're good. Let's, if we could ask, hear from the applicant, please.
You want to do both
We can do them both?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do 4B then as well. Thank you.
4B,
Please.
First Amendment to Reserve at Strickland Planned District, PD Agreement, DEV 2024-335.
Yes, indeed. Haley,
Good.
hi.
Hi. Good evening, Dana Lee Pettick, Senior Planner. This item is a request to amend the Reserve at Strickland Planned Development Agreement to allow for additional commercial uses and to revise the development criteria. So the project is located at the southeast corner of the Strickland Range Road and Clyde Morris Boulevard intersection. The future land use on the property is currently office transitional, but as you just heard, it is proposed to change to mixed use. The zoning is currently the Reserve at Strickland PD, which will remain, and this is the aerial, which shows that it is a vacant property. So the property was originally rezoned to planned development in 2020 for a mixed-use development with townhomes and offices. The townhome portion of the PD is under construction and is nearing completion, and it might actually be done at this point. However, now the applicant is requesting an amendment to the PD to allow for future commercial development. Approval of the PD amendment is contingent upon adoption of the concurrent small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. So the changes proposed to accommodate the future commercial development in the PD are to add commercial uses as permitted uses within the commercial portion of the PD, allow for existing vegetation to count towards minimum landscape requirements and perimeter buffers, revise the architectural standards and signage for the development, and incorporate a separate commercial PD plan. There are no modifications to the residential portion of the PD proposed. So first, the amendment will add additional commercial uses as permitted uses within the commercial portion of the PD. The existing PD agreement allows only office and healthcare uses on the property right now. So the proposed amendment would add neighborhood-scale commercial uses such as restaurants and retail. As shown in this map, which was larger when I made it. I don't know what happened when we converted it. But good thing I made my labels very large. So as you can see on this map, which is about a mile out from the site, the majority of the property is residential development, and the non-residential is limited to school or medical and office. So allowing additional commercial uses in this location would provide convenient access to restaurants, retail, smaller shops, and smaller medical offices for the surrounding residents, of which there are several, and more are coming. So next, the amendment proposes to add language to allow for existing vegetation to count towards landscaping requirements and perimeter buffers. We already allow this per the Land Development Code, so we have no objection to this. The amendment also includes a proposed landscape plan for the commercial development, which identifies the area for existing trees to remain shown, which is the light gray area on the left side of that picture. And then the amendment includes two waiver requests for the property. The first one is to allow advertising of off-site uses, which are still within the PD boundaries, even if on separate lots on the same sign. Second, the applicant requests the requirement for changes in roof plane at certain intervals, which is one of the requirements of the major city thoroughfare design standards in our code, be waived to allow for flexibility in the future design. So it's just the roof plane requirement they're asking for the waiver for, not the rest of the architecture requirements. And the final modification is to incorporate a separate conceptual development plan for the commercial area of the PD. And this is the proposed plan. So with that, staff recommends the planning board forward the First Amendment to the Reserve at Strickland Planned Development Agreement to the City Commission with the recommendation of approval. A majority vote by the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And the item is tentatively scheduled to be heard concurrently with the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment on January 8th for first reading and January 22nd for second reading. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on either 4A or 4B? Seeing none, I'd like to ask for the applicant to come up to talk about 4A and 4B. Hey, Rob.
You were anxious to get me up here, weren't you, Mr.
really
Chairman?
was.
Rob
I didn't see you, sir.
Yeah, likewise. Rob Merrell for the record with Cobb Cole, 1 Daytona Boulevard. Thanks to staff. As you guys know, we go through a long period of working on these projects with staff before we get here. So when they bring you this package with their recommendation of approval, I know you guys take that very seriously. So appreciate it. Thanks for the report, both verbally and written. You know, Scott Vanacore has owned this property for a couple of years, but I think you guys might know Scott. We've been here with a couple other projects, but he has been a residential home builder in this area since he and I were teenagers together. And he's done a lot of commercial projects as well. He's done a lot of self-storage, so very experienced local family developer. So I know you guys like to know who you're dealing with. And of course, you know Mr. Minchenberg over here, who's done a lot of projects in Daytona Beach. I think this story is best told with the exhibit that Danley showed, which I think is the colors, even though you can't see the detail, show what's been happening out here in the last few years. And I think you guys are out there enough to see a lot of people are living out there now. I think this was probably originally envisioned to be office for purposes of either medical or back when we went to our offices, you know. I think things have really changed in the market for office, and Scott recognized that when he bought this piece. And clearly, this is perfectly designed to have small-scale retail, you know, restaurant, other uses, a bagel store, a coffee shop, nail salon, things that people can ride their bicycles or walk to. There are sidewalks all over these roads, so the hope is people don't have to go all the way down to Tomoka Town Center in their cars, right? They can come here by bicycle or walk or skateboard or whatever people do. And we call that, you know, internal capture. So Matt West is back here, and he can talk to you about that. But I think what you're going to see from the report and then the recommendations given to you is we set this up so that the commercial being substituted for the office results in a no net change in terms of traffic impacts. In fact, it will likely, because of the fact that the internal capture promotes people not having to get in their vehicles, there'll be less cars on the road. So I know traffic's a big thing, especially in this neighborhood. So this is the type of smart growth that people are trying to move towards to keep people out of their cars. So with that, in Milverton, I will mention to you, this is a cleared site. There are no wetlands. There are no animals out here. Stormwater retention has already been, installed here. So everything's draining the way it should. And so we don't have flooding issues. We don't have wetland or bugs and bunnies. So I think this site is pretty straightforward and ready for this use to come forward. So with that, any questions for me or Matthew or Scott or Parker? We're here for it.
Rob, I just think this is moving this area towards a true live, work, play type environment where you have all the pieces in place. So I think it's certainly appropriate to go down this path, at least in my opinion. Any other questions for the applicant? Parker, I know you've got a form here too, if you want to.
That's just if you need.
If you're, okay.
I just have a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
Can't make a comment.
Go right
I know we have a middle school over there. How have we looked at the impact that it would have on the middle school, especially drop-off pickup time? It's right there.
You know, Matt
And-
probably can answer that, but when he does his traffic look at this, they look at those peak times. I think one thing I would say, Tony, is when you went from office to retail, that flows more throughout the entire day. Whereas in office, people come in the morning and they leave in the afternoon. So the schools kind of usually end up being jammed up at the same times.
Right.
In this case, it kind of spreads the traffic around. And like I said, people walking and driving their bicycles helps even
Yeah, I'm
more,
just looking
so.
at the intersection and the danger of stuff.
Yeah, so we have
I
a
know to look
crosswalks.
at it, yeah.
And sidewalks everywhere. So I think it's perfectly suited for the use.
Okay, well, that was my concern, I know.
My
Milverton?
my question is along Mr. Barhu line of concern about the impact on the school. The issue I have with you want to remove the prohibition of the signs. We have a middle school right there, and I'm concerned about where you're going to put the signs and what kind of signs it is. And you have addressed the traffic concerns with Mr. Barhu, so I'm not going to, rehash that issue. But I know that the parking along there, especially when the kids get out of school, is not good.
Yeah, just go.
And it's just an additional headache. And then you're going to have what I was concerned about more than anything else is the businesses that are allowed in your commercial section of it.
Which one's Milverton?
I'm on page 8 of 9 under 4B. I like the concept that, you can walk to school, so forth, which is great. But what I'm looking at is your retail establishment. Other retail sales establishment. You didn't, what are you going to prohibit from being in this commercial section of your, what are you going to prohibit, because what I've seen popping up all over the place, and I'm not against cannabis, tattoos, or some of those other, stores that pops up. But what about if I wanted to put an adult or a cannabis store or a smoke shop? That's the thing. I'm looking at the
No, those are good
quality
questions,
of the
especially
retail
with the
that you're going to
school.
put in there, because money talks, and I don't want to have a vacant lot when somebody's going to come in and put a store.
Yeah,
in
I'm with
there.
you.
That's going to.
So I would say this categorically, and Dennis, you can weigh in, but the way zoning law works is it's permissive. So if something is not specifically allowed in either a zoning district or a planned development agreement, you can't do it. So I don't think we have those uses allowed. So Dennis, I don't have the complete list. I have what's in the zone in the
We have
report.
the complete list, we have
Yeah.
the complete list in the staff report. Some of the uses you were talking about aren't specifically listed as a permitted use in
Right.
here, so they would not be permitted.
Wouldn't be allowed.
Okay.
The other retail establishment category is a very small category of some things that we don't have listed in our land development code. That would be a smaller retail use, not specifically listed, that might fit into this category, but it'd have to be compatible with the other types of retail uses that we have. So, the medical marijuana use, that's actually a pharmacy use. That's not listed as a permitted use on here.
So it's not allowed.
It's not permitted. The tattoo that you're concerned with, that's not listed as a permitted use here, so that would not be allowed. So just what you see here is what's going to be permitted.
Okay, so the other retail establishment is clearly defined.
Well, let me,
and
hang on,
minimized.
let me stop, because I just noticed this drugstore, pharmacy, with or without, is it listed as a permitted use? So that does include a medical marijuana use. That could potentially be permitted at this location with this use.
So drugstore and pharmacy.
Drugstore,
is the category.
pharmacy would include a medical marijuana use, correct?
I don't know that that's our intent.
The school is right next door.
Right next door.
Yeah.
Have to be so many feet away.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Scott, if you can come up.
Yep, Scott,
so they can
if you
hear
would, please. Name and address for the record, if you would, please.
Scott Vanacore, 1451 North US 1. When you make reference to the school being right there, the school is actually about a half a mile to the north. In the cross section, where you stop and go slow, is actually almost a quarter of a mile north of this intersection. So it's not really right on that corner. It's a half a mile to the north.
6 or half a dozen.
Yeah, but as far as
school is
traffic,
there.
you were mentioning traffic.
I'm not,
and
Mr.
signage.
Barr, who addressed the,
Yeah.
the traffic, so we're not gonna.
He's talking solely about the uses at this point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
Talking about the
he was
quality of
talking about
life
the
in
traffic
terms of
and
the
this,
retail.
being on top of us.
We're okay with that.
Okay.
We're okay with the traffic because, you're gonna mitigate the driving with the walking, which
Right.
is great. You reduce the pollution, the air, and all the other stuff. And people, I love kids walking to school. My concern is about what retail establishments is gonna be placed. in-
That's our concern too.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't allow those things in there, which I believe include adult uses and
No.
things like that.
Right, but on here, there's a caveat that says other retail sales and establishment. That's my concern.
So Milverton, what we did, I think when we were going through this, is we took the list of the uses that are in the
Yeah.
commercial areas, and we went through with the staff, and we marked through the stuff people didn't want. And so the other retail is kind of a categorical catch-all that is in your code. All this stuff is, none of this we made up, it all came out of the code.
Oh,
So-
I know that, Rob, and I know you do a very good job at it.
Well, to the
But-
extent that it's something that you don't like, I think that can be noted.
I was going to say, Rob, that we're talking about cannabis stores may not be necessarily appropriate just down the street from the school. Dennis had mentioned that this drugstore pharmacy use could include that. would you folks have a problem with eliminating that particular use?
So I think that the traditional drugstore, pharmacy, like a sundry store that has those things in it, is kind of works here. For people to be able to convenient.
I didn't
So
say
the
eliminate that particular use.
so the
I'm
pot
talking about
part of
the
it, I'm not so
subset.
sure about, but the rest of it, I hate to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That would be my response, Scott. But
We're not
how do
asking,
you-
we're not asking you to throw
Yes,
out the
you
baby
can't
with the
think of
bathwater.
I'm just talking just that, Rob.
I'm okay with that. I don't want kids.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Rob,
what,
I'm just talking just the
Yeah.
cannabis store. Keep
So-
the rest of that use there is fine by me.
what I don't want to say, yeah. So maybe they're talking about how to do that. I'll let them decide how the best.
That's my concern later on down the road. I live about 5-10 minutes from that area.
Yeah.
Okay, and my kids are going to go to that middle school,
Right.
and middle school kids are very easily influenced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we put up a building or a retail thing, it gives them permission as being acceptable.
I hear you.
So we have to be responsible adults and parents and community to say, look, this is how we want you to focus.
Yeah.
And we don't want to introduce businesses in the area or in my neighborhood that's going to influence the
I hear
kids because they're very influential. So what I'm asking you is not to throw out the baby in the bad water or throw out your old project. What I want for you is a commitment that being the school it's next door. Okay, half a mile, quarter mile. What I want is a commitment to make sure that the businesses that goes in there, and I'm not asking you to ban books or whatever, is to have a much more responsible observation and of what's going on the property next to the school. That's what I'm asking you to do.
So
And-
Milverton, let me just go back to these guys. So if we were to just have sort of a footnote so we could continue to have a pharmacy if there's going to be a real actual pharmacy.
Yeah.
Without the medical
Pharmacy would be
marijuana
nice.
component, was that something you
we
guys
can,
would?
Rob, we can make this easy. Keep that use in,
Yeah.
exclude the cannabis usage.
We're okay with that.
Or the smoke shops.
But I think we're trying to get.
Yeah.
We don't want them to be, we don't want a smoke shop going in there.
What I'd like to use,
vape
Milverton,
shop.
sorry to interrupt you, is the categorical definitions that the code already uses, so we're not making up words that
Right.
that aren't defined. So Dennis, I know you've got those
Pharmacy
uses,
is not a smoke shop, so I don't think
They're
we have to
different things.
concern ourselves there.
but there are,
The
I want to make
cannabis
sure.
store is a different.
I want to make sure if we're going to all agree on something that it's the right terminology, and you have the book in front of you, Dennis, so if you can help us with that. We're okay with it. Let's just make sure we use the right words.
And I'm not saying you should put family friendly, everything should be family friendly. Because you got adults living in the
Sure.
neighborhood.
Absolutely.
But I want you to be more cognizant of the retail establishments you're going to be putting right next to a middle school.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I tell you what, we're good with that, and
I think
maybe let
we're
Dennis.
just taking a look at that. Do we have any other questions or comments for the applicant at this point?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Don't have any speakers other than if Parker's just dying to come up and say a word or two to us. With that, I would ask we need to handle these two items separately, members, 4A and 4B. And I would ask for the motion maker, once we get the exact verbiage about how we're going to exclude the cannabis stores from the pharmacy use. But let's see if we'll
And
get
that would be
that
an
from
item
Dennis.
4B, correct?
Excuse
The
me?
usage will be on 4B, not.
Yes, it would be on 4B. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Yes. Yep, where's an idea? Why don't we move through 4A and we'll get to 4B? Could I have a motion, please, for item 4A?
Okay, I make a motion, we approve agenda item 4A, Small Scale Comprehensive Plan DV 2024-334, Reserve of Strickland SSCPA.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Now we can move smartly to item 4.
Okay, let's get the
4B, and let's see how we get that verbiage. What do you
Well,
think, Dennis?
I think we can use the terms, we can exclude medical marijuana or cannabis dispensary from that, if the applicant was okay with that.
And would that include the smoke shops?
Smoke shops are not on this list, so that wouldn't be
Well,
something we need to
you know, and
exclude,
that's-
am I right?
The retail.
And that's where I'm not sure. And the smoke shop may actually fall into the other retail category.
Yeah, so somebody's selling cigars.
But that's true. And so if somebody
It's a
wanted to
smoke
do that,
shop.
they wouldn't be able
Smoke
to
is
do
smoke.
Well, we're not talking about the hookup pipes and stuff.
We don't know.
So there's a really cool cigar shop right on Granada, which is one of our, main streets that, I don't know, I hate to give away things that there are people that live in that neighborhood that might want to come over there and have a cigar and a glass of cognac or whatever. I mean,
That's on the main road. That's not in the neighborhood.
Right, but
well,
these are
this
dealing
is
with
on the
kids.
corner of Clyde Morrison and
That's a
Strickland Range
neighborhood.
Road.
Right across the street, there's a big cottages with the old
got
area is
residential on
surrounded
all
with
three sides, I agree.
Homes. You're trying to tell me that I want to build a community.
So you don't like cigars either?
Oh, I love cigars.
Okay, well, that's what I was saying. I don't want to lose the
But I
cigars.
want a cigar shop next to my.
All right, before this gets too far down the road of who likes cigars and who doesn't, is this an issue we want to fall on our sword on? Do we want to exclude smoke shops as well as the medical marijuana? That's what we're talking about.
we
If
just need
indeed that's
clarity.
what we're talking about, Rob,
Vape shop.
is that something you can
So
do?
isn't the vape thing that the hookup stuff that's going on down at Seabury, isn't that a separate?
A hookah lounge is a very different category. And
Yeah.
that's not listed as a permitted use, and I don't think
Okay,
that's what we're
so
talking about.
that's not a problem.
I think what they're talking about is the shops that specifically have smoke and smoke paraphernalia, the vaping. that they can
Right.
purchase.
Is there a name for that?
Yeah.
Smoke shops that I've seen, but
That's what
You
I
okay
would call them.
bailing on that? Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, the cigar part.
Cigar,
That's smoking.
Is that a smoke
Actually,
shop?
we have a
Those-
separate use specifically for cigars.
Is there a separate one? Okay.
I don't think that there is a separate one. I think it
Oh.
would fall within the smoke shop category. Certainly, if that
I
is
mean,
possible,
We could simply say smoke shop other than cigars. I mean, because I know that's considered kind of a nice use.
I love cigars.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Can we do that, Dennis? I mean, it seems like we could.
sure.
It's a PD. So I was trying to be categorically in the right definitional area so we can rely on that later, but people know what cigars are.
If you want to say a cigar shop is permitted
Yeah.
under the other retail, but the vape or the smoke shops are
Yeah.
not.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you all, because the whole thing is making sure our kids are safe, and and I work in the school system, so
making sure the adults are okay too.
Oh, that's right.
So what we're talking about here as far as uses is that we'll have the uses that are on the staff report. We're going to exclude the medical marijuana and the cannabis stores, and we will include smoke shops other than cigars. Exclude smoke shops other than cigars. Are we feeling good about this? Okay, great. Moving forward then, if I could ask for a motion including those two items on item 4B.
like you said, no,
Like
make
you
a motion. Make sure we get it right. I make a motion to approve agenda item 4B, Plan Development General PED Amendment DV 2024-335, First Amendment to the Reserve at Strickland with the conditions of the smoke shop and, as you have said.
And the medical marijuana.
Yeah.
shop. Okay, I think we got the gist there. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
gentlemen.
evening, guys. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. All right, moving to item 4C.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, please.
Sure. Item 4C, Waypoint Preliminary Plat, DEV 2023-123.
Very good. Hear from staff. Hey, Luke.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is Lou Krinkus. I'm a planner here at City Hall. I'm here presenting the major subdivision preliminary plat for Waypoint. Oh yeah, this is me.
Unless you can mentally make it.
I wish. So this is a request by Jarod C. Stubbs of Kimley Horn and Associates on behalf of Dorothy C. Kirton Living Trust, who's the property owner, to approve a preliminary plat for the development of 426.7 acres of proposed multi-use. These uses include single-family townhomes, commercial development parcels, which is including multifamily. This land comes from 5 parcels on Tomoka Farms Road, west of I-95. And so you can see that this is located just south of I-4, right on Tomoka Farms. And then same thing, here's an aerial view. As you can see, it's vacant. Future land use is mixed use. And the zoning designation is the Waypoint Planned Development Agreement, PDG. This is the preliminary plat map, which is across 32 pages. You can see in your one of your attachments, I believe, C. The proposed major preliminary plat is consistent with all lot dimensions, access, and infrastructure requirements outlined in Article 7 of the Land Development Code and subject to the Waypoint Planned District Agreement. The proposed major preliminary plat would allow for 295 unit single family, which are 40 feet wide, 315 single family units, which are 50 feet wide, 250 townhome units, and 800 apartments, and then additional non-residential development, all on 426.7 acres. Approval of the major preliminary plat allows the applicant to move forward with the final plat approval process. A little project history: platting of 426.7 acres of single-family, multifamily, and commercial developments, which is platted from 5 existing parcels. The Waypoint PD rezoning was approved by the City Commission on May 17th, 2023. The PD is called the Waypoint Planned District Agreement, and a comp plan amendment for the parcel was approved to allow for mixed-use development as a part of the proposed Waypoint Planned District Agreement. Staff recommends approval of the major subdivision preliminary plat for the Waypoint project to allow the development of single families, townhome, and commercial development uses, including multifamily, on 426.7 acres on Tomoka Farms Road, west of I-95. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval to the City Commission.
Very good. Any questions for staff?
I have a quick question for
Please.
you. In regards to the single-family houses, 40 feet wide, what's, from lot line to lot line, what is the space in between from one to the other when they're building? For example, is it 0 lot line or is it 5 feet?
Yeah, I think there's 5-foot minimum setbacks on there, so the houses will be 10 feet apart.
10 feet apart.
Mhm. And that's per their PD agreement that was approved. That's their minimum requirement that they
Right,
have.
right. I know it's minimum.
Yeah.
I was just checking and see.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's close,
I was going to say you were hoping for more, weren't you, Mr. Barber?
real close. I mean, okay.
All right. So anyone else for staff? Thank you very much, Luke. Talk to the applicant. How we doing?
Hey.
Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the developer, and I just really available for questions. It's a very straightforward process. I think I've even said to this board, it's putting lines to paper and applying what you have, which is the PD and inconsistency with the code. So it feels a little perfunctory, and sometimes the wisdom of what is done and isn't done can be questioned after the fact, but it's a application of consistency. That's the question that's being asked here, and it meets all of the code criteria, and it extensive review with staff and making sure this is done the right way has occurred, and we're happy to keep it moving. And if there's any questions, we do have the engineer available if there's any specific questions regarding the platting, and also we do have a representative from the developer team to assist if there are any questions with the plat.
Thank you for being here. Any questions for Joey?
Just one more quick question.
Please,
Mr.
Barber.
And I apologize, just for my knowledge sake, and I'm sure it's in here, the ingress, egress, as far as emergency vehicles getting in and out?
Yes.
I'm sure you looked at all that.
Oh, and if I remember correctly, there's 4 or there's 4 points. There's 4 full access points, so it's extensive.
Okay.
Yeah, and I should point out too, this is on Samoka Farms Road, which is a county facility, and they're very particular about how many access points. So they don't want to have too many, but they want to have enough to be able to serve.
Exactly. Well, with that many homes and that close, you know, definitely want to make sure everyone is safe.
You know, and this was actually designed with the internal road network also, and provides for future extensions to the south of this property for when that gets developed, so it doesn't have to go out onto Samoka Farms Road as well. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And I like the way Joey confirmed it with his fingers.
And
That's the scientific way.
That's exactly right.
To Joey's point, we have been working on this a long time. The DV number on this is 2023-123, which was the beginning of 2023. So a year and a half, at least a year and a half, even longer, staff has been working on it to get to this point, to get all of the details associated with this correct. So
That's a lot of homes, a lot of people. Oh, packed in like sardines.
Yeah, one more point on that. This, if you recall, when this did go to the city commission back in 2023, the city commission, this went to several readings at the city commission, several meetings at the city commission, and they negotiated specific offsite improvements that were associated with this project for Tomoka Farms Road and for ISB to be able to do this. And it was only after the applicant had agreed to make all of these improvements that the city commission agreed and said that this project was a good project and they were looking forward to it. So that includes all of the units that they are representing here.
That's correct. Mr. Weatherholtz, my apologies for ignoring you. I'm trying to look through the secretary to you, so my apologies, please, sir.
It's always a problem in that area of drainage, you know, and it's not real clear on your retention areas. I don't know whether the
I have the expert.
That's what I kind of figured you'd do.
Well, and I'll let him speak to that specifically, because I know we've had extensive discussions on the construction side of this too. So, you know, he's beyond an expert when it comes to that for this project.
Please name and address for the record, if you will.
Jarod Stubbs, Kimley Horn, 1530 Cornerstone Boulevard, Suite 200.
Thank you, sir.
The project has been permitted through FEMA and the Water Management District. Those permits are in hand. We have an issued CLOMAR permit that proves that with the proposed development, we are providing more floodplain compensation than what's out there today.
Mm-hmm.
We are pre-posting both our volume and our discharge rate for with this development. So what that means is that when it rains, even after all of this is built, we are discharging less water at a slower capacity with this development than what is happening today.
Approximately how high are you raising the subdivision?
Plus or minus 4 to 5 feet.
And that's a comparison, you know, with your elevation of the road, Tomoka, I assume would be your...
So we're about 2 to 3 feet higher than the crown of Tomoka Farms Road.
And are you hauling in material, or do you think you can get that from the retention areas? Or?
So all of the soil is currently planned to be sourced on site. That is dependent on the suitability of that soil. Once you go to a certain deep, you only have so much assurance. But we are intending to get all the soil on site.
Have you did core and borings on it?
Yes, we have probably about 64 borings on this project, but you still sometimes have some uncertainty until you actually start digging in mass quantities.
Absolutely. And then, you know, the water table there is constantly high, you know, digging a retention pond, getting the material out of on the site is excellent if you can do it, but most people don't realize on a retention area, you know, no matter how deep you dig, you only get so much water capacity.
Exactly.
And that's kind of always what surprises me. And that's the reason I ask St. John's. It sounds like you've got your permits in order, but, you know, we're having such bad flooding. And the climate's changing, and it's something that needs to be looked at on every large project.
And I think that's exactly why we can appreciate from staff's perspective how much time this has taken, because we're doing this a little bit of in tandem. So there's getting a lot more front-loaded review when it comes to those type of issues, and of course that we're all very sensitive to the flooding, and we don't want to be the project that's picked out as the next one that says, hey, you're contributing to the problem. So I appreciate it, and these questions are good, and this is why I bring him, because if we can talk intelligently to those issues and we can get ahead of them, then we really shouldn't have those issues. So, I'm happy that we're having this discussion.
What's never put an account on, especially a project at this location, is the road areas. I-4, 95. They produce a lot of water, and they really don't. They supposedly have their retainage, but that's to be seen.
Understood.
And so that's the reason I bring up the subject on everything, the large projects around here, because we're having massive flooding, and I'm going to look at every project and ask questions.
No, of course. And we're happy to answer them. And, as part of this process, even though it may not be the platting part of it that speaks to those issues you're identifying, at least we can talk intelligently to them to say, look, we've looked at this, and this makes logical sense because we've already gone through part of that review. We've secured the permits. So, people are assured that this doesn't become another issue down the line, and then you have the same discussion a few years from now.
Because, the reason I ask that is, raising the elevation comparison to using the road in comparison. But the next project down the road, are we just moving the water down the area? And, because there's so much land out there that we know it's going to, not everything's going on the west side.
Understood.
So we have to look out for that use, and I think you answered my question.
Well,
thank you.
And unfortunately, and Vernon said it very well, is that recent events is going to make these kinds of discussions a priority, and it just has to be. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Mr.
What
Robert,
about the
please.
environmental
Please.
issues?
Well, most of it's a pasture, but the area that is environmentally sensitive in the south east corner is being preserved. So it's being incorporated into some of the pasture areas to the north, and there's going to be walkable trails and other aspects like that. So it's not being impacted, and we're trying to incorporate it into the other amenities that are on site and create that walkable interconnectivity with the wildlife corridors and trails. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate your time. We don't have any speakers for this item, so I would ask for a motion on agenda item 4C, please.
Yeah, I make a motion, we approve item agenda 4C, Waypoint pre-plat, DV 2023-123, preliminary plat for overall subdivision.
Thank you, Tony. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Unanimously, moving on to item 4D. Madam Secretary, please.
Sure. Excuse me. Item 4D, remove prohibition to food pantries, Land Development Code, text amendment, DEV 2024-689.
Very good, thank you. I think this is going to be Dennis carrying the ball on this one.
Yeah, this is Dennis. Dennis Mrozek, again, Planning Director with the city. This next item is a request by Growth Management and Planning Department, the Planning Division, to amend Article 5, Section 5.2B of the Land Development Code to remove the prohibition of food pantries as an accessory use to places of worship in redevelopment areas. I'm going to skip this next slide, and I'm going to come back to it in a second. But first thing I want to do is give you a definition of what the food pantries are, and I've got this in your staff report. Food pantry is any program that acquires food products through donation, canned food drives, food bank programs or purchases, and distributes the food to individuals, and does not provide prepared food to clients for consumption on or off site. So there is no prepared food that somebody is coming to get the prepared food. They're not giving prepared food. It's not somebody grabbing something and eating it on their way out. It's a bag of canned food, dried goods that they take home and they cook it at home, and it assists people with a need for food. So as far as the amendment request, some background information. Food pantries, we consider them to be accessory uses to places of worship uses. The accessory use is currently prohibited if the place of worship is in a redevelopment area. Outside of the redevelopment area and other areas, it is a permitted use. Inside the redevelopment areas, it's prohibited as an accessory use. The impact of this accessory use is the same regardless of whether the the use is within the redevelopment or outside of the redevelopment as an accessory to the place of worship. The proposed amendment would remove the prohibition to the food pantries as an accessory use for the places of worship in the redevelopment areas. So the change that we're making, these are use-specific standards that are associated with a place of worship that all churches would have to, all places of worship would have to follow. The last one is the C, and this is the one that's in red, and this is what we're going to be striking from the code. That currently says, irrespective of the districts that food pantries are shown as allowed in the use table, they shall be prohibited as an accessory or principal use to a place of worship in any redevelopment area. This is not a necessary addition to our code. It probably shouldn't have been in here. This is really a cleanup to make it fair right across the board, whether you're in the redevelopment area or outside of the redevelopment area. So as far as a recommendation, staff does recommend approval of the request to amend the Land Development Code to remove the current prohibition of food pantries as an accessory use to places of worship in redevelopment areas. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval to City Commission. Item is anticipated to be heard at the City Commission at the next City Commission meeting for first reading on December 4th. We're moving this along pretty quick. And for second reading and final reading at the December 18th City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
So what we have today is we have the redevelopment areas excluded. We're going to include them. That's really what we're talking about.
Right.
And we'll go to our church expert.
I just
Pastor
wanna make
Barho,
sure.
how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that was fine. I think we should be fair across the board, whether you're in or out. It's the same standards all the way across. As long as we're not taking it away from there, because they do a lot of good for a lot of community folks. But as long as they're able to function, no problem.
Okay. Mr. Robinson, please.
I did not see in your report any discussion with the redevelopment boards as to what they recommended.
This is a text amendment. This is, again, it's not a requirement to take this item to the redevelopment board. We did present the item to our redevelopment staff and for redevelopment staff to discuss this with the redevelopment boards, but it's not an item that they would make a recommendation on. They are invited, as they always are, to, if they have any objections, to attend the City Commission and to make their opinions heard at the City Commission.
So we did not get their input.
We can get their input and they can make their comments directly to the City Commission, but it's not really the purview of the planning department to bring
what I'm talking about is the collaborative.
Mm-hmm. And that's why
effort
redevelopment
between-
staff would go there and they would discuss it with the redevelopment board and let them know.
I just did not see that in the report as part of the process. That, the staff was, you got a redevelopment staff, but you got redevelopment boards.
Yeah, and the redevelopment staff is responsible for the redevelopment boards. They're the liaisons to those boards. And so they deal with those boards and discuss the
But
matter.
I didn't see any input in your report as to what the redevelopment boards' input were.
Right.
Because, they're going to be the ones who are going to be affected. And always like to see something from the impacted entities.
It seems in this case, Mr. Robinson, this is somewhat self-explanatory, so it may not necessarily, I understand.
I agree, but
I think in this case, it might be somewhat redundant.
Yeah, but not necessarily. We have redevelopment boards, right, for the purposes of giving us input into our recommendations to the City Commission as part of the collaboration between the board, the city and its community. So if we're going to maintain a positive collaborative relationship with our boards, right, within our reports, we could have said the redevelopment boards concurred or disagreed, so that the commission would know that the community that they're going to impact, as already said. So we understand that they can go to the commission meeting. However, part of the process is to have, whenever an entity is impacted, is to have their comments or their input. Listen to me for one second.
I hear what you're saying.
I'm not disagreeing with striking this.
And I
don't get me wrong.
No.
What I'm saying is the process There's a process.
Well, and-
there's a collaboration, and there is a value for having our community input, so they don't go to the commission meeting, and then you have, 2
Sure,
hours.
and I understand it.
Yeah,
but
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying, you made your point. I think we understand that point. Let's continue. Again, Mr. Weatherhouse, did you have any comments, please?
You know, it brought my attention. I'm involved, with a food pantry, at Our Lady of Lourdes. Anything that, would affect the harm of the situation on any place. I know over the years we've had a lot of discussion about providing food out in open areas and certain locations that, was prohibited by the city or tried to eliminate. But I see no reason for this, but I want it to be fair, that it is a need, and we should always hold that in the city.
It appears a discussion where you're opening up food pantries to more areas than we had before is certainly speaking to that
Absolutely.
fairness that you're speaking of. So, anything else? Okay, fantastic. Ask for a motion on item 4D, please.
So I make a motion, we approve DV 2024-689, removal of prohibit to food pantry land development code tax amendment.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Thank you very much. Moving into other business, the Downtown Redevelopment Area Board. Anybody there? Anything going on?
He's not here.
Not here, okay. How about Midtown Redevelopment?
We did not meet.
Okay, all right, moving smartly along. Beachside?
I was absent from the meeting.
Okay, you are forgiven, sir. Affordable housing, just a couple things for you folks to be aware of. I mentioned at last month's meeting the discussion of options for dedicated funding for particular affordable housing projects. As they call it, a linkage fee for non-residential projects. That's still moving through the process. It appears they're going to present their findings, staff's going to present their findings to the City Commission on the 18th of December. So we'll see where that goes. Also, we had a discussion yesterday at our meeting about the Hurricane Milton Disaster Relief Program. It's being administered by both Mid-Florida Housing and the Greater Hope Community Association. Being able to help folks that are in that 80 to 120% AMI category, and that seems to be moving forward smartly. So that's encouraging to see. Any public comments? I don't have any.
Before we get there, a quick question about affordable housing.
Please.
Is there a standard negotiation between the city and contractors when they're trying to develop an area as to what type of percentage, or what discounts they get, or what the city gains from it, or what, in order to provide so many units? Because, some of the projects we have had, 20 out of 80 units might be affordable housing. Is there some kind of formula or something that's done? Maybe, Dennis, maybe you can.
Dennis, can you weigh in on that?
I don't think there's any specific formula. It's something that would be negotiated. Sometimes with the affordable housing, they'll negotiate impact fee
Or even
credits.
low income, same
Yeah,
thing?
low income, yeah. It's really up to the city as they negotiate what type of affordable housing they're talking about, because there's different levels of what the affordable housing is. And so that's all part of the negotiation process as they go through this.
And I'm assuming that's on a case-by-case
on a
basis.
Yeah,
depending on
and the reason I'm asking, because I know certain projects seem to have more, I don't know if it's a bigger tax break for the developer or what happens. I'm just seeing if there's something across the board to be fair.
Well, the thing that's interesting is the project that's located over on Clyde Morris Landings. Most of that is driven by the actual developer with the affordable housing. There's very little that's actually given by the city to be able to support the affordable housing. They just have a model in place that works for them, and it's a number of units they have. other developers have different models that they use, so that's where we're
Also,
going
they
to
come
case
with
by
a
case.
model.
That particular one, it's pretty specific on what it's being developed for.
Right, that's the idea.
Affordable housing is
Okay.
is one thing, workforce housing is another. And I think that a lot of people have different ideas on it in groups of people.
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure it's fair across the board as folks coming in and building units and so forth. I mean, we need it, don't get me wrong, I'm glad they're coming in, but if that's something that they're giving towards the community because of a need, I think that's a great asset.
Agreed.
That's it.
Anything else, members? It appears that no public comments. Any staff comments, Dennis?
Well, I actually just have one, and I'm going to introduce you to somebody. We have a new senior planner that had started with the city yesterday.
Oh,
So I want to introduce you to Amelia O'Brien, who is a Daytona Beach native and joins us here at the city of Daytona Beach. So Amelia, if you would, just introduce yourself and tell us.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you all. Good evening. So like he alluded to, I'm a Daytona Beach native. Grew up here. Was born in Halifax Hospital. I've worked in the private sector for 3.5 years now. I worked at Volusia County as well. I went to school at Florida Atlantic University, came back after 5 years. So I'm just glad to be here with you all today and to work with you all in the future to improve the quality of life for Daytona Beach's residents. That's my main mission here.
All right, well, welcome.
Welcome
Yeah.
to the city. We're looking forward to your contributions to just just that.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And they did this, so you had to come up tonight. I just,
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, and he was happy to join us. It was a short meeting today. Just
Yeah.
less than an
Yeah.
hour.
There we go. I'm thrilled to death.
This was my
He'll be joining
intention.
us for more meetings, I can guarantee it.
All right. If we have anything from the board, other I'd like to say to all of you is wishing you the very best of the Thanksgiving season. I'm going to be visiting my daughter and grandkids in Detroit, and I understand, Pastor, it's going to be cold up there.
Yes,
So
it is.
I don't know,
you in
but
prayer.
I would wish you all the blessings of the season, and thank you for your hard work here. And any other comments?
Just happy Thanksgiving to all. Enjoy the family and be safe.
And with that, this meeting's adjourned.
Okay.
I'm
Before
heading
7 o'clock, I'm thrilled.
There you go.
to the key.